So one of his first acts was he went to Europe, and he went to Europe incognito. And there he studied the craft of shipbuilding with the Dutch, who were masters at it. He also learned the art of navigation from the English Navy, and he saw the great wealth these European empires were pulling out of their overseas colonies, and he figured they might have use for Russian natural resources. But what Peter really wanted was a piece of the action. And he knew that in order to cut into the pie, he would have to drag his country kicking and screaming out of its gloomy medieval backwardness into the great white light of new commercialism of the Western world. When he got back to Russia, Peter resolved to transform his country into a naval force that would not only trade with the European empires, it would compete with them as a military power.
Pedro voltou-se para uma faixa de terra a 600 quilômetros ao norte de Moscou, perto do Mar Báltico, às margens do rio Neva. Com a vaidade de um deus romano, ele imaginou uma cidade que poria a Rússia no mapa da Europa. E chamaria essa cidade de São Petersburgo.
A city on that spot had direct maritime access to Europe.
O único problema era que essas terras pertenciam à Suécia. Mas Pedro não se abalou e em 1700 atirou-se a um ataque fulminante, tomando as terras à força. Em 1703 foi lançada a pedra fundamental da cidade.
The new capital that Peter had in mind, it was to be a fortress, was to be the center of the army and the navy. It was to be the window on Europe through which Western ideas, modern ideas were going to flood and spread throughout the entire empire.
São Petersburgo nasceu à custa de muito sangue e guerra. Mas para o povo humilde, a ambição do czar era uma espada de dois gumes.
Peter chose the site of his future city for its access to the Baltic Sea, but this advantage would come with a steep price. For 5 months out of the year, the river delta and its surrounding swamps would freeze, and then predictably and reliably flood when they thawed with the warmer months. The building of this city would be a monumental challenge. So Peter turned to the one natural resource that compensated in Russia when all else failed: raw manpower.
O povo russo literalmente construiu São Petersburgo com as próprias mãos. Naquele mundo pantanoso, quase nenhum suprimento podia chegar. Para firmar as fundações da fortaleza acima das águas, os operários tiveram de cavar a terra com as mãos e transportar milhares de toneladas de barro em casacos e camisas. Tudo tinha de ser importado. Até a madeira tinha de ser cortada a montante para descer pela correnteza em grandes quantidades a fim de estabilizar as fundações.
There's no bedrock there, so that any large structure had to be built on pilings.
Para tanto, os engenheiros projetaram um sistema de polia para cravar milhares de estacas no solo macio.
You'd raise the head, and they would drop it, and that would drive the pile into the ground. And this was repeated tens of thousands of times in Petersburg.
Within 5 months, thousands and thousands of laborers had erected the hexagonal walls and the timber bastions of this fortress you see behind me. At night, they'd come home to their camps freezing and tired and hungry, and just as they had come by the thousands, so they would die by the thousands from disease, from the flooding, and from exhaustion. By 1708, a rough estimate of 25,000 laborers had perished building this fledgling city, which gave rise to its nickname, the City of Bones. There is no statistic that tells us exactly how many people died before the city was finished, but a 19th century historian says that up until that point, there was no single battle in the annals of military history that cost as many lives as the number of laborers who perished in the building of St. Petersburg.
Para Pedro, os fins justificam os meios. Em 1706, ele lançou o primeiro navio de guerra do estaleiro de São Petersburgo, o primeiro complexo industrial da cidade. Tinha construtores navais residentes, fabricantes de velas e cordames, forjas e uma fundição de ferro. A Rússia agora tinha uma marinha, e o czar ia gradualmente mudando a face do império. Em 1712, com a habitual e rude eficiência, Pedro procedeu à maior das mudanças. De uma simples penada, ele fez de São Petersburgo a capital da Rússia. Em um instante, os 300 anos de supremacia moscovita ruíram por terra. Moscou ficou aturdida.
Many Russians reacted to Peter as though he were an alien from outer space. They didn't understand him. He imposed his strange ideas on his country, using the full force of an autocratic and absolute monarch, which he inherited from his predecessors, but he knew very well how to use it to get his will.
His vision to revolutionize Russia was the thing that drove him throughout his life. Nothing and no one escaped some kind of an effect from this revolutionary process.
Pedro não poupou despesas para criar uma cidade do nada. Mas em 1714, São Petersburgo ainda estava longe de ser um centro europeu como ele esperava. E os anos de farra e excesso já começavam a pesar no czar. Sem aquela vontade férrea, o projeto todo ameaçava ruir e deixar a Rússia mais uma vez à beira do caos.
For decades, Peter the Great had been monastically focused on his twofold task of turning Russia into a great empire and St. Petersburg into its glittering capital, with one exception. He still held his legendary bouts of drinking with his buddies, but as always, his hard partying had very little effect on his relentless energy. He defeated Sweden in the Great Northern War. He'd extended Russia's boundaries from the Baltic all the way to the Pacific. He'd built a new European capital. He'd built a navy. He built schools of engineering and science, and he'd increased Russian trade sevenfold. Military and politically, Russia had become an empire, but it still lacked the one element essential to all empires, prestige.
Em 1714, Pedro rabiscou o projeto de um palácio que ele queria construir no topo de um promontório a 40 quilômetros de São Petersburgo. Seu nome seria Peterhof. O palácio seria cercado por mais de 200 hectares de jardins enfeitados por cintilante rede de chafarizes e fontes colina abaixo. Os trabalhos desse grande projeto começaram em 1716.
Large numbers of army soldiers were actually sent to the estate to dig the trenches that would feed the water through a pipe system to the fountains.
Em 1719, os engenheiros hidráulicos do país começaram a trabalhar no complicado sistema.
The palace was built on the heights, and the heights are what feed the water. It's that drop, that gravity in that drop that actually powers the fountains.
Valendo-se do terreno escarpado e da água de fontes próximas, os operários construíram um sistema de 22 quilômetros impulsionado pela gravidade. A água ficava armazenada em reservatórios elevados, de onde jorrava por imensa tubulação, que descia vertiginosos 15 metros até a fonte central. A água acumulava força suficiente para esguichar a altura de 20 metros. O resultado era estonteante. A visão impressionava tanto que o palácio foi apelidado de Versalhes russo. Mas Pedro não teve muito tempo para desfrutar essa maravilha. Tendo mergulhado na água gelada para salvar um marinheiro, o grande czar caiu doente e não resistiu.